Good morning. My name is Paul Harris. I'm joining from sunny Melbourne, where we're coming out of partial lockdown. So the purpose of this presentation is aimed at organizations who currently use Oracle Primavera P6 and are looking to improve their planning and scheduling. I'm going to explain the main differences between P6 and Elecosoft Powerproject. I'm going to focus on unresourced projects. We're going to discuss the advantage and disadvantage of each product. A little bit about myself. I've got an honours degree in civil engineering. I obtained in the UK. I'm a certified cost engineer through AACE in the US. I'm a Prince 2 practitioner and managing successful programs practitioner, and I've worked in the project controls industry for a large number of years, and I have assisted many companies to set up and run project control systems. I'm a director of my company, Eastwood Harris Proprietary Limited, and we offer project controls consulting and training services worldwide with a strong focus on Microsoft Project Primavera and Powerproject planning software. And I've written and published over the past 20 years more than 50 books. I started on SureTrack and Primavera P3, then I went to Microsoft Project. I was asked by Oracle, by Primavera Systems, to write a book on P6 when they bought Oracle Primavera P6, and I've also written a book on Elecosoft Powerproject. So let's have a look at Oracle Primavera P6. We'll start off with the architecture first. It was designed for business development projects and not the building construction industry. It's aimed at companies who are like insurance companies who are developing new insurance policies, and they've got IT systems and marketing and all that sort of stuff. Being developed for the business development type projects and IT projects, it does lack some of the functionality that I expect to see in building and construction scheduling software, and we'll go through some of those functions. So P6 will only open a project from a database, so you have to be connected to a database, and there are two types of P6 databases. There's the professional project management database and the enterprise project portfolio management database. And there are two client applications that will send and receive information from a P6 database. There's the P6 Windows client that most people use to manage projects, and that will open projects from both of these databases. Then there's the P6 web client, and that will only open up an EPPM database. It's aimed at large organizations. The web has a large number of reporting collaboration tools and built-in integration with other Oracle products. So the web client is really aimed at larger companies. A majority of building and construction companies use the P6 Windows client and a professional database, although there are a number of companies moving to an enterprise portfolio management database, but they still use the Windows software, the professional software, to open up the database, because the web is slow and clunky to open up and manage schedules with. If we have a look at Elecosoft Powerproject, Powerproject has many options. You can open up a single file locally or from a server. Multiple users may open up a project file, and also multiple projects may be kept in a single file. And finally, if you want to run it in a similar way to Oracle Primavera P6, you can use Project Vision and have all your projects in a database, and then you can open them from the database. So it's got a lot more flexibility. Most building companies that I know of use Powerproject by opening up a single project, usually from a file server. And Powerproject has many add-on tools aimed at the building and construction industry. For example, it's got a site progress reporting app that therefore the people on site can report progress from their telephone. Powerproject has a significant advantage because it has a concurrent license structure and a free reader, so it can get a lot less expensive to implement compared to Microsoft Project or Oracle Primavera P6. So if anybody is using P6, if they want to just view a file, they have to have a license, and it has to be a named license. Whereas if you've got people in your organization who just need to view a file, therefore they can use the project viewer, the Powerproject viewer, which is free, and therefore it can be a lot less expensive to implement Asta than either Microsoft Project or P6. So let's start off having a look at calendars. So the Oracle Primavera P6 calendar function unlike Microsoft Project, does allow you to have calendars with different number of hours per day. So you can have some activities on 8 hours a day, some on 10 hours a day, some on 12 hours a day, and it works properly, unlike Microsoft Project. But it doesn't have the ability to print calendars, which is a major drawback. It doesn't allow time increments less than 30 minutes. So we have organizations in Australia that like to work 8 hours and 45 minutes. You can't. You can either work 8 hours 30 a day or 9 hours a day. It can't have activity start and finish times that are not on the half hour, and this on railway possession projects where you take over a site at 10:15 and hand it back at 3:20 and that sort of thing. You can't do that in Primavera P6. It doesn't have notes or descriptions for non-work days, so when you make a day a non-work day, you can't put notes or descriptions on them. The Gantt chart background coloring for non-work periods, you can't have, for example, public holidays one color and roster days off another color. It doesn't have a start on new day function, so you can end up with a concrete pour having 1 hour on Friday afternoon and then the next 9 hours on Monday. And a start on new day function is really useful. And it doesn't have the ability to display non-work time using different calendars. So if you have a database with a few thousand projects, which all have different project calendars, you cannot show a different non-work time for different projects in the background. So there is only one calendar for the whole database to show the non-work time. And most companies tend to go for a 5-day a week and show the non-work time just as on Saturday and Sunday. And I've been working on a project where the customer is really keen to see they were working 10 days with 1 day off and then 4 days and 7 days off, and the customer wanted to see that non-working time in the background. The only way we could provide that is by creating a new database, because the other projects in that company didn't want to show that different non-work time in the background. If you have a look at Powerproject, it also allows you to have different hours per day and calculates properly. It allows start and finish times at any time. It has a start on new day function. It allows you to name non-work time and color them differently. It allows you to display the non-work time on or behind each task based on the calendar assigned to the task. So what we can see here is that these activities, this is working on a 5-day a week, so this is not working on the Saturday, and these are holidays, and you can see that this is on a 6-day a week. So you're able to show the calendar associated with the activity on or behind the activity. So Microsoft Project allows one calendar per layout. P6 allows one calendar to be displayed as non-work time for all projects in the database, whereas Asta Powerproject allows you to show the non-work time per activity, and you can show the non-work time either on the bar or behind the bar, and also unlike Microsoft Project, it allows necking as well. P6 does also allow necking. So this makes it a lot more flexible in terms of how you display the non-work time. Let's have a look at the Oracle Primavera P6 structure. So the main structure for Oracle Primavera P6 in terms of your project structure is to use a work breakdown structure. So you create a work breakdown structure, and so that's the project node, and we've got 3 WBS nodes here. And so P6, you go and create a work breakdown structure and then assign activities to it. P6 activities may also be grouped under activity codes and user-definable fields and most other database fields as well. It doesn't support outlining, which is where you have summary activities, which makes it a little more difficult to import activities from Microsoft Project. But the principal way is of organizing activities is by a WBS and then also grouping and sorting under activity codes or user-definable fields. Powerproject structure uses outlining, so we have summary tasks here. These are summary tasks with activities that's similar to the Microsoft Project structure. It also has a work breakdown structure function, but when you're using summary tasks, it has a function here called Project View, where you see the summary activities here, and you can select individual summary activities in the project view and just show the activities for those summary activities on the Gantt chart. So if you've got a really big schedule, you can click on one at the top, one at the bottom, and check the relationships between activities, which makes it very, very quick and easy to use Powerproject. So this makes the creation and management of large projects a lot simpler. So Powerproject structure also uses WBS encoding. So if you want to, you can have a work breakdown structure here, or you can use coding. So this is grouped and sort by a work breakdown structure, and this is grouped and sort by activity code. So again, you can use it in a similar way to P6 if you want to. Unlike P6, Powerproject will display a resource bar. So you'll find both in Microsoft Project and P6, you cannot show a resource bar, whereas in Powerproject, if you're going to go into resources, then you can show a resource bar underneath your resources. And also, all resources may be updated in columns, so you can create columns to update your resources in. And again, this is not possible in Microsoft Project or P6. And so again, you have a lot more functionality. We're not focusing on resources in this presentation, but I'm just mentioning this, that you can have resource bars. So Primavera P6 has the following activity types, has a finish milestone, a level of effort. And to create a level of effort, you have to have relationships between activities. So you can have a start to start, or a finish to start, and a finish to finish, or a finish to start at the end of it. And so a level of effort has to be linked up. It has a resource dependent activity, which therefore is scheduled on the resource calendar. It has a start milestone, a task dependent, and a WBS summary. So these are the activity types that it has in a WBS summary. Gets its start date from the earliest start activity and finish date from the latest finish. If you have a look at Elecosoft Powerproject task types, it has the following that are similar to P6 activity types. So start milestone schedules the same way as P6, immediately before their successor. A finish milestone is immediately after the predecessor. A task, again, they calculate in a similar way to P6. We have summary tasks, which calculate in a similar way to Microsoft Project summary tasks. And also, if you've grouped your activities by WBS, the same way as a WBS node calculates the start and finish dates in P6. As the Powerproject has hammocks, but rather than as in level of efforts, you have to link them up. In Powerproject, you just assign activities to a hammock. So here I have a hammock activity, and 2 activities have been assigned to that hammock. And if I want to, I can expand the hammock and see the activities that are part of that hammock. So you can create multiple hammock activities. You can assign an activity to more than one hammock if you want to, but a hammock allows you to create a activity that summarizes groups of activities in a similar way to a level of effort, but without adding the complication of the additional relationships. And also, you'll find in P6 you get a confusing critical path going through hammocks and things like that. So this actually the hammocks in Asset Powerproject, in my opinion, are a lot better than the way P6 operates with the level of effort. Also, Powerproject has an expanded task. So this means that you can have an activity in your Gantt chart, but you can hide the detail. And you can see here that I have calculate bid estimate, and this is indicating that this is an expanded task and has detail underneath it. So if you click on the expanded task, I can see the detail that's underneath this activity here. So this is the detail underneath. So I've got to calculate the bid estimate, and then I'm breaking that down into taking off quantities, quotes from the suppliers, calculate costs. So I have detail hidden underneath. So if I click on the root chart, I don't see that detail. But if I select, say, these nodes, I can then see the detail underneath if I want to. So I can hide the detail, or I can see the detail. So this is the expanded task. These are the detailed tasks underneath. And I can choose to either see the detailed tasks underneath or not. So here you can see that I am not showing the detailed tasks underneath. Here I'm just clicking on the root chart in the project view and click on the activity here, and I'm seeing the detail. Or if I select both these nodes here, then I see all the information below. So this is a really neat way of creating more detail, but for example, not showing it to your customer. It also has buffer tasks. So if you've read Eli Goldratt's book on critical change scheduling, Elecosoft Powerproject supports buffer tasks, and the duration is self-adjusting. There are two types of buffer tasks. There are feeder buffers and project buffers. Have a read of his book. It's really interesting, but again, Powerproject supports critical change scheduling. And also it has interruptible tasks, which effectively stops lag drag. So people who understand what lag drag is, if you make an interruptible, then you'll find that this is before you make it interruptible, where this activity has been dragged backwards by the finish to finish. And if you make it an interruptible, then this activity will go from the start to the finish to finish. So again, that's an interruptible activity that gets over the problems of lag drag. Moving on, activity splitting. P6 only allows one split with a suspend and resume, and the intention is the suspend is in the past and the resume is in the finish. Powerproject allows multiple splits to tasks, which makes it possible to model complex situations more easily, so you can have multiple splits in the past and multiple splits in the future. And it has a term of multiple tasks to a bar. This is a bar can contain more than one task. So we can see here that we have the bar name is concrete pour, and concrete pour has these 4 tasks under it. So this is where the tasks are on one line. It's multiple tasks to one line, or you can open up and you can see the multiple tasks here, and you see they're all under concrete pour. So you allow to have multiple tasks to a bar, which can be opened up or rolled up or opened up and showing the detail. So the task per line mode function is really useful. For example, if you've got a large development where you've got, say, 30 houses, you can put each house on one line with the coloring here representing different trades. And when you have tasks that are overlapping, so you've got a finish to start with a negative lag there, then these can pop up and show the overlap. So this is showing individual houses, and this is where it's unrolled to show the detail or rolled up. That's up to you. So Powerproject uses the term multiple tasks on a bar. It's useful when it's desirable to reduce the number of lines in a program, and it'll be logical to display them on one line, and Powerproject may display these on separate lines if required. And as I said, this is a picture of a housing project. It's one of the Powerproject sample projects. So let's have a look at Oracle Primavera task relationships. In P6, you're allowed 4 relationships: a normal finish to start, start to finish, and finish to finish. Drawing relationships in Primavera is end sensitive. Unlike Microsoft Project, when you graphically draw a relationship, you only get a finish start and then you can edit it. The P6 relationship lag, so if you have a lead or lag, is calculated on a single calendar for all activities. So you can have a choice of whether you can have the predecessor, the successor, the 24-hour, or the project calendar, but that calendar is assigned to the lag. So the lag is calculated on the relationship. This is useful in Oracle Primavera P6 because it does allow you to create ladder schedules here with a start to start and a finish to finish when you've got activities, because a lot of companies don't like to have large negative lags, which people tend to do if you're using Microsoft Project. Later versions of P6 now allow the lag values to be seen in columns, which it wasn't available in earlier versions. So this is a more recent functionality. But the predecessor and successor task names are not available in columns in Oracle Primavera P6. So although this is a lot better functionality than Microsoft Project, let's have a look at what we can get out of Powerproject. So Powerproject, on the other hand, allows an unlimited number of logic links between 2 tasks. So you can have multiple relationships between 2 tasks, and it's got far more functionality than P6. First of all, you can graphically draw logic links with the mouse, but then you can also draw the leads and lags with the mouse as well. The leads and lags are calculated on the predecessor and or successor tasks. So the lead or lag is more logical. You say, I'm going to draw a relationship from that point in that activity to that point on that activity. So what you're actually putting is the lead or lag on either the predecessor or the successor task, which is far more logical. You can format these, you can create, you can format all the leads and lags and relationships that you can't format in Oracle Primavera P6, the coloring is fixed. You can create link categories, so you can assign a category to a link that enables the links to be formatted in a different color, but also links with a link category may be turned off, which in turn allows multiple build options in one schedule. I found this really useful. I remember one program I was creating, and we had a choice of using 1 or 2 cranes, and I created a link category to so when we wanted to level from 2 cranes to 1 crane, we added extra relationships, and therefore we could turn off that link category, and you can have in one schedule 2 options, either the 1 crane or the 2 crane. So in theory, you could create a build program where you're building from west to east, and you'd have a link category for west to east relationships, or you can have a category for east to west relationships, and you can turn one on and one off. And you can have one schedule with multiple options using link categories. Also, you have a zoom function, a really powerful zoom function, which doesn't destroy the timescale as it does in Microsoft Project. And as we all know, P6 doesn't have a zoom function at all. And this is really neat for seeing more detail when you're adding relationships. So here, Powerproject has a lot more options than Primavera P6, but structurally it's different because it puts the leads or lags on the activities rather than on the relationships. And as the Powerproject calls relationships links. Also, because the lead or lag is on the relationship, you can have partial critical paths. So you can show half an activity as being critical and half of it not being critical, which again is not possible in other products. When I look at constraints, P6 allows 2 constraints plus the use of an expected finish. Powerproject has a similar set of constraints, but it has a work between, which in some respects means that you don't have to have two different constraints on an activity. In P6, for work between to work, you would have to put a second constraint on. I think that both products have similar functionality, and I see no significant advantage in either product when it comes to constraints. When it comes to filters, P6 has filters that are simple to create and use. But it doesn't have drop-down filters or interactive drop-down filters as you have in Microsoft Project. It doesn't have interactive filters, which is where you can create a filter and it asks you a question. Like, for example, if you want a date range, you apply the filter and it says what's the start date and what's the finish date. So again, you can't have interactive filters with P6, which makes it really hard to filter on a date range, because you have to keep on going editing the filter before you apply it. It doesn't have project filters, and you find companies with a large number of projects end up with an enormous number of filters, and the database gets clogged up. And I have clients that have a number of issues because you can have user filters or you can have global filters, but you can't have project filters, and it gets quite difficult to use. It also it does have layout filters, so you can assign a filter with a layout, but if you've got 10 project layouts and 10 filters, you've got to assign 10 filters to 10 layouts, and therefore that gets a bit of an administration. And it has an interesting function, it allows multiple filters to be applied at the same time. I reckon it's really neat, and that's a significant advantage of Primavera filtering, is that you can select multiple filters and have either all or any apply. But that's one of the advantages of P6. Elecosoft Powerproject filters, it also doesn't have drop-down filters, but has interactive filters, which makes selecting date ranges a lot simpler. And also it has the project view, and this is really powerful, where you can select individual nodes and just see the activities underneath them when you're creating a project. You'll find that P6 network diagram works like this, but you can't have this project view type thing in the Gantt chart in P6. Presentation and formatting, you'll find that both products have similar concepts to views in Powerproject and layouts in P6. So Powerproject uses the same terminology as Microsoft Project. A P6 layouts holds all the formatting except a date and time formatting. Powerproject views are similar to Microsoft project views, and they hold the timescale and Gantt chart, and then you apply a group and sort, a table, and a filter. So what are the Oracle Primavera P6 formatting issues? Well, first of all, there's a significant number of the default load, which have not been addressed by Primavera, by Oracle Primavera. So what I find is that when you have a default load, all the bar formatting of all the views that come with the product are not good. And also, Oracle Primavera displays the plan dates, which often hold irrelevant data when you display the project baseline or the primary baseline. So again, if you're not familiar with the product, you haven't been trained, you can end up showing irrelevant data as baseline data. As I said, the default formatting has a large number of issues that need to be sorted out so that data may be displayed properly in P6. There are significant issues with the user preferences and date and time display. So a user must show the hours when they are assigning actual starts and actual finishes, and also when they are assigning constraints. If you don't show the hour, then P6 selects midnight for your actual start, your actual finishing, your constraints, and you end up with a program that shows information that's not logical, and it's not logical to have activities starting and finishing in the middle of the night. Non-work is displayed in a P6 Gantt chart based on the global calendar, so you can only have one set of non-work time shown in your Gantt chart for all projects in a database. And I've got some customers who have hundreds of thousands of projects in their database, and they can only show one non-work period calendar for all of those projects in the background, and that's a serious weakness of a product that's aimed at the construction industry. And there's no zoom function. So Powerproject date and time formatting, basically Powerproject allows every date and time column that is displayed to be formatted as the user requires. So you can have one column in this format, one column in that format, one column in a different format. So you can format the columns individually if you wish. This resolves many of the issues found with the P6 user preferences date and time formatting. And the formatting is saved with the view and is available for any user that opens up that project. Timescale formatting, as I said, Powerproject has a zoom function that works well, especially when you're adding links. Time and timescale zones, P6 the P6 timescale allows three date scales, so you can have, say, year, month, and week, one above the other. Whereas Powerproject, you can have up to 10 of these if you want to. I don't recommend you have 10, but you can have up to 10 different lines here. This is showing 4. I've got the year, the month, then this is the week, and then the day. Also, you'll find that when you zoom in and out, it doesn't mess up the font. It just hides when the characters get too small, it just hides them rather than make them illegible, as you find with other products. And also you can have 3 time zones with different scales. So you see that this is the first time zone, this is the second time zone, and this is the second time zone, and you can have these at different scales. This is like the old short track function, and you can then reformat these in each time zone if you want to use them. So again, this is really useful if you've got a possession period on a railway project, and you can open it up and show more detail. Presentation and formatting. Bar formatting is very basic in P6. It doesn't have the coloring of bars based on task codes, but this is available through their third-party product that called Visualizer, which is a separate product they developed. It doesn't display resource bars. It doesn't display the non-work time per calendar. It doesn't allow you to place graphics on the Gantt chart, and you'll find that the Powerproject bar formatting is far superior. So you can color the bars based on a code. You can show non-work periods, so you can see that these activities are on different calendars to these activities. It does have a couple of weaknesses. You can't create user-definable bars yet in Powerproject, and the formatting of total and free float is weaker than other products. So you can see here, these are the float bars, but these can't be user formatted. But again, it's quite clear when you've got total float, free float in Powerproject. Oracle Primavera printing. P6 printing has always been simple and straightforward with no major issues. Again, unlike Microsoft Project, which has always been a nightmare. In Powerproject, I believe it's certainly superior to P6 with the additional function. It has border files, so you can create border files with the logo and header scaled to suit either A1 or A0 or A4 sheets. And that's really useful, whereas in P6, if you create a header and footer suitable for an A4 piece of paper and print it on A1, then the logo and the header gets really large and not particularly good. So this does handle border files are really useful, and it's got a lot of other printing issues like printing functions, like you can print to images and things like that. So again, although P6 printing is very good, Powerproject has a few more functions that make it a little bit more superior. Baselining. So P6 takes a complete copy of a file when it baselines, and there are several major issues with the P6 baseline function. Firstly, only limited baseline data may be seen from the current schedule. The following types of data may not be read from a baseline. You can't read baseline critical path, relationships, constraints, or late data may not be read, so you can't see the late dates from a baseline. You can't see individual resource costs and units, and when you're reading a baseline, the resource values are summarized by resource type. So if you've got concrete and Rio against an activity, it just adds the cost of the concrete and Rio together. You can't see how much the concrete is in the baseline, how much the Rio is in the baseline. And also, you may not read baseline units for material and expenses in a Gantt chart. So you can see all the labor values added up together. So you can see the total number of hours against labor, but not the individual resources. And again, if you have mobile equipment, if you have different mobile equipment as non-labor, you can only see the total number of hours for each of all the mobile equipment, but not individual machines. So you can't see the cubic meters of concrete or tons of steel in the Gantt chart, and you can't see individual bits of equipment. Baseline 2 and 3 only show dates, and there's no duration or resource information available at all. Only 4 baselines may be displayed. I think 4 is quite sufficient, but the problem is that 2 of them you can see very little information from them. And when multiple users open up the schedule, the user baselines have to be reset by the second and subsequent user. So if I set a primary baseline and a user baseline 1, and if somebody else opens up my schedule, they must reset user baseline 1 to the same as mine, otherwise they're going to read different data, which is quite an issue when you have multiple users in a project. Elecosoft Powerproject baselining. As with P6, it stores a complete project as a baseline. There's no limit to the number of baselines that may be saved. Baselines may be named and have notes assigned to them, which again you can do with P6, but not with Microsoft Project. And it resolves the issues. So, for example, irrelevant planned data is not displayed when you display a baseline. So if you display a baseline in P6, it will display the planned dates as a baseline unless you actually assign a baseline. All the data from a baseline project may be viewed from the current project. So once you've created the baseline, you can see all the information from that baseline file, the early dates, the late dates, the resource, hours, dollars, and everything. Nothing is hidden from user as it is in P6. Up to 10 baseline bars may be displayed, including the resource baseline bar. So again, you can see an awful lot, you can see all the information from a baseline project in Powerproject. And again, you can say partial baselines as in Microsoft Project, but you can't in P6. So when you schedule with progress, so when you are updating a schedule, P6 has one method of calculating the in-progress activities, and it forces incomplete work into the future. So what happens with P6 is when you update, normally what you do is you put the actual start, the remaining duration, the percent complete, and reschedule, and it forces incomplete work into the future. The actual duration is calculated from the actual start to the data date or the actual start to the suspend date. And unfortunately, it doesn't have the option to force incomplete work into the past, but it does handle in-progress tasks well, and it's far better than Microsoft Project. And P6 is very, very simple to update a schedule. Really, the only thing you have to do when you update a schedule in P6 is make sure the actuals in the past in relationship to the data date and it is a simple product to use when you're updating progress with it, but it only allows the one method of updating. Powerproject has a number of scheduling options that are set up in the corporate template, and it has more scheduling options than other products, and you need to decide how you want your projects to calculate and then set the options the way you want them, and it's fairly simple to mimic the way P6 and Microsoft Project calculates. Powerproject has an optional function called straighten the report date that moves incomplete work in the future and complete work in the past, which avoids the minor issue in P6 of leaving completed work in the future. And Powerproject has the option of multiple report dates. So whereas in Microsoft Project and P6 you have one data date or status date that you move forward, you can set all these up at the beginning if you wish to, and then save the progress in each period. So you can see the progress in each period fairly simply if you want to use it in that method. So what happens in Powerproject is that if you update the activity, you say that that's done that much work and that's done that much work, and this is the report date or the data date in P6, you can see that we have at the moment incomplete work in the past and complete work in the future. That's before scheduling. If you choose to straighten the report date, what it does is push incomplete work in the future and any complete work in the past. And at that point in time, I think it would be prudent to adjust the actual start of this bit of activity here to make sure it starts when it actually did start. But P6 would not move this complete work into the past. Advantage of P6, well, basically P6 is a robust product. It's got the capacity to handle a large number of projects with many thousands of activities. It's a very strong product. Updating a project is very simple and is well accepted method of updating a schedule, and certainly a lot of companies move from Project to P6 because of the way Microsoft Project baselines and the way it is very difficult to update a schedule properly. It's a well accepted and very common product in the building and construction sectors, resulting in trained and experienced people are reasonably common and easily obtained. So let's have a look at some of the issues with Oracle Primavera. There are a number that haven't been addressed since it's been released. First of all, it has to be connected to a database to operate, and this can create some issues when you have remote sites with poor internet. The default activity views have a number of formatting issues, and they must all be reformatted to ensure baselines and relationships are displayed correctly in the Gantt chart. And this is a major issue. And the first thing I do when I start implementing P6 for a customer is I go in and I delete all the Oracle Primavera layouts and start again. Scheduling does not have the option to move actual dates set in the future back into the past. Users must always show the date and time so that when they are assigning constraints, suspend and resume or actual dates, they're not entered at irrelevant times. So it's really important that when the time is not displayed, you will find that actual start and actual finishing constraints are set at midnight and the actual durations are calculated incorrectly. And it's a disaster. I've been in litigation where I've seen projects where all the actual starts and the actual finishes at midnight, and I stood up and said, well, were you on site at midnight? They said no. And I said, well, you know, the schedule hasn't been updated properly. This data and this schedule is irrelevant. So it's really important that people understand how to use P6. Also, only limited baseline data may be seen from the current schedule. The following types of data can't be seen, as I've just been through. You can't see baseline resource costs and units, and all resource data is summarized by resource type. You can't see resource type units for labor and non-labor. You can see all the labor and non-labor added together, but you can't see material or expense units. Baseline 2 and 3 only show dates with no duration or resource information. Multiple users opening up a schedule must know what the other users have set as their baseline and reset if necessary. It's an ability to create multiple splits in the past and future, but you can model this either by assigning a calendar or creating multiple activities to represent the split, so you can overcome that issue. P6 have planned dates that may contain irrelevant data once the schedule has been updated, and the planned dates are displayed as baseline dates when a baseline has not been set. So if you show a baseline bar and you haven't set a baseline, you'll show plan dates, and in an in-progress activity, they may have irrelevant data. It's graphically weaker. It's unable to display free float bars, different non-work time for different layouts, graphics on the Gantt chart, individual bar coloring based on activity codes, but this is available in Visualizer, resource bars, and date and time formatting per user is selected and applied to all data in all windows. So when you set your date and time formatting, that date and time formatting is displayed everywhere, which is quite honestly makes it very difficult because you're going in and out of user preferences all the time in P6 to change your date and time setting to suit what you're doing. Advanced Powerproject, well, it resolves most of the issues outlined in this paper. It doesn't have to be connected to a database to operate, and if you are using Project Vision, you can keep all your projects in a database, and the way Project Vision works is you check the project out, so you download it onto your machine and then you can work on it. So if you've got a poor internet connection, once it's downloaded, you don't have a slow machine. Data may be pasted into a Powerproject schedule, and as people know, you can't copy and paste from Excel into P6. It has far more formatting functions. All baseline data may be read from the current schedule. Irrelevant data is not displayed when a baseline data is displayed with no baseline assigned. Resource bars may be displayed, and it's simple to update a project properly, so all the incomplete work is in the past and complete work is in the future. So here's some of the functions available in Powerproject, not available in P6. It is able to drive task durations by quantities. These are not resources, so I've got 10,000 cubic meters at 80 cubic meters per hour, and P6 will calculate the duration of the activity. It has link categories, so you can color and turn on or off relationships between activities. As I said, Powerproject called them links and not relationships. Ability to draw links with leads or lags graphically. It has task snapping to keep durations to a day or half day. And again, it's very easy in P6 and Project to end up with durations in decimals, you know, a 0.11 of a day remaining, things like that. Has a start on new day function to stop concrete pours starting late in the afternoon. It has ability to reschedule part of a project, so you can be working on part of a project, just reschedule that part, not destroy the rest of the program. It has coloring on the Gantt chart based on codes. The display of each task non-work time either on or behind each bar. Therefore, the task is displayed with its own calendar either on or behind it. You can split windows and link cross windows, so you have the Gantt chart in the top and bottom window and cross-link through the top and bottom if you want to. It has 3 different time scale zones, so you can have different scaling like the old short track function. Has multiple report dates, which are called data dates in P6 or status dates in Project. You can display all the baseline data, such as baseline critical path and resource data. It has BIM integration, and it's really powerful. You can import your BIM file and see your build in Powerproject. It has the ability to open and save to an XER, a P6 XER, and a Microsoft Project XML, and also a P6 XML. Sorry, there's an error there. So you can open and save a P6 XER, a P6 XML, or Microsoft Project XML. If you get into resourcing, then Powerproject handles resources far better than P6. It's got the ability to update resource columns, values in columns, the ability to view resource bars. It has income and expenditure resources, and P6 and Project don't understand the difference, so you can create a resource and call it income or expenditure and work out the cost of financing your project, and it has exceptional histogram graphics. So in summary, Powerproject is designed for the building construction industry. It has many more functions than P6. It does not need to have the expense of a server and a database to operate if you want to, but you have the option of using Powerproject Vision if you want to. It does not have the baseline issues found in P6. It has a free reader. That means that only the schedules need a license, and you can have concurrent licenses and therefore make it less expensive than other competitors. And the implementation of Powerproject must be accompanied with corporate templates and basic procedures so that users may get down to scheduling projects, not get caught up with setting up the software, because there are a lot more functions in Powerproject than the other products, and you must set up your templates and procedures so that people can get down to scheduling and not worry about the additional functions they're not using. So that's the end of the presentation. Please submit any questions through the question box, and thank you for attending. So back to you, Chris.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you. So we've had a few questions through, and I say if we don't get to you back, then we will email you afterwards. A couple of people asked about the presentation. It has been recorded and it will be made available. You will all receive a link, an email with a link to that presentation, so you can watch that and pass that on to colleagues. Someone did ask about, but it's actually just covered in the last part, all about that you can actually import files from Microsoft Project, from P6, whether it's XER or XML, and you have the viewer there. And interestingly, the viewer will allow you to open up XER, XML, and Microsoft Project XML files direct into the free viewer. So that's a way that people can use even if they don't have a license and just want to view it and print it. So that's that side. Other than that, if you do have any further interest or have any interest in this, we do have a global network of resellers and partners across all different countries. Contact us on the email I'll send will be my email address, and if you want any further information, we can then put you in contact with the relevant resellers. So someone's asking about how well Powerproject exports to XER. So the answer is that we create an XER file. If there are any issues upon export, it will create a log file. So when I say issues, P6 has restrictions on the number of characters that can go in a name and so forth. So there's a number of issues that there, and Powerproject will trim those, but it will also put that into a log file to tell you what it's done on that side. There's also in the help section of Powerproject talks about the differences and what it does to those to transfer those across. Another instance would be Powerproject, as Paul mentioned, would allow you to have multiple tasks on one line, or P6 does not let that functionality, so it will break those into individual lines for you. So again, in the help, it also documents that and it creates that log file. So no issues with calendars. It'll import the calendars back and forth. You know, someone's also asked about calendars. It'll export the calendars. Powerproject can have unlimited calendars. Each calendar can have different work patterns. It will all be brought across and replicated and exported back again. And the same as activity codes and so forth go across in there. Okay, so I think that's it for questions for now. If you do have any questions, do let us know. And thank you for